Hey guys, welcome to this video analysis of UFC 236. So I'm going to go over a couple of fights here, a bunch of them that I want to mention. Not all of them, obviously. As you guys know, I only do the ones that I like to that I think that there's something useful that we can talk about. So let's begin with that. So first one, the light heavyweight Nikita Krylov against Auvin Saint-Preux. Uh, not entirely unpredictable. Here's the thing. Saint-Preux is a guy who has everything he needs to become champion, but at this stage in his career, I very much doubt that he will ever get to that point. He he has all the traits of what I call a lazy fighter, and a lazy doesn't necessarily mean that he doesn't want to put the work in. I don't know how he trains, so I can't really tell. But the way that he fights is lazy. It's takes his time for stuff. He takes these shuffling steps. He's heavy on his feet. He throws these powerful techniques at times, but he doesn't have the explosiveness that he could have. That is in a part usually mindset. It's in part training. It's typically something that happens when you have a guy who is talented, physically speaking, and then he gets a couple of fights, and because of his physical strengths, he wins those fights, and then doesn't bother just fine tuning technique and getting technically better. This is he has all the hallmarks of that. I'm not saying it's the case. Again, I don't know the man, so I can it's hard to say, but he has all the hallmarks of such a fighter, which means that it's extremely difficult for him to make progress at the higher levels, because at the higher levels everything counts, including all the nitty gritty technical details that you might think, well, I don't really care about that because I can just punch the guy in the face real hard. Sure, but then at the highest levels, everybody can do that. You're not the only one. And then it's all the small percentages that you can increase in your favor. That's what makes it, amongst other things, what makes a difference. I just checked. Saint-Preux is 36, so I don't think it's going to happen for him anymore. He had his shot. His shot is now gone. I don't see it coming back. The whole fight with Krylov was okay, yeah, whatever. Not all that great, not horrible, but it wasn't really all that great. I think Krylov did a couple of good striking exchanges, so that I like that. Saint-Preux went for the takedown a bunch of times, but it was Krylov who actually did the best takedown in my opinion. And obviously, it ended with a choke, and Sapporo really quickly gave up his back. So, and it's just, I would say, a waste of talent. That is my overall opinion. First time I really saw Sapporo get tested was against John Jones when John Jones came back in his comeback fight after suspension. That was a few years ago, and it was like, okay, John Jones was clearly rusty, and Sampro didn't know what anything he can do anything with it. Now, if I remember correctly, he was injured, but still, it just didn't work. So in that regard, I think we can put that to rest. So Sampro, I don't think he's got much of a career left, other than maybe get served up as cannon fodder sooner or later by the UFC for upcoming light heavyweights. And Krylov, we'll see. Now, moving on to the next fight, so that's Dwight Grant against Alan Jouban. That was an okay fight. It wasn't great. The main thing that I want to point out is that so Grant is got these wild swinging techniques that he does that are powerful when they land, but they also leave a lot of openings. Jouban didn't really capitalize on it. The main reason for that, in my opinion, is that he just was content to follow Grant the whole time. So if you just watch the footwork during the rounds, you'll see that in many cases Grant is moving back and away, and Jouban is just following him. He makes no attempt to cut off the cage. Sorry, he makes no attempt to set a trap for Grant with the footwork and make him move into a technique, which he could have done very easily, but he never did. He just kept on following. And every time that Grant threw something, he tried to move back out of range and hopefully not get hit. That's a strategy that takes up a lot of energy, and it's not really something that you should count on to be extremely successful. because you're just relegated to running around and trying to catch up to a guy who's trying to get away from you. And that often lets him choose when the engagements happen, which means that he's going to stop, plant his feet suddenly and counter or throw something. And that's the only time that you can actually do something to hurt him, unless you can cut off the cage. And Jouban didn't do that. So these are they're both okay, good fighters. That's not the issue. But I think Jouban, who was the guy pressuring most of the rounds, again, a missed opportunity. He could have won this fight just with a little bit more efficient footwork and tactical footwork. I think he could have done a really good job here. But, such is life. And then we get to the next light heavyweight bout. That was Khalil Roundtree Jr. against Eric Anders. Now, that was a fun fight to watch. You could see that. Roundtree apparently has been training Muay Thai extensively, had a camp in Thailand, and really committed to training there. And if I'm not mistaken, he's going to move there and basically stay there all the time. And it works. It worked. Now, he always had tremendous power. I don't know if you guys remember, but I first saw him in one of the seasons of The Ultimate Fighter, and there was one fight that he finished the fight by, I'm not quite sure anymore if he knocked the guy down or if the guy fell down or he tripped him, whatever. But Roundtree was standing and he basically soccer kicked the guy into the ribs, and the fight was over. Which is a technique I very much like. I think it's very practical and it's extremely underused in MMA. I don't know why. I have no idea why people don't use it more, because you're allowed to use it. You cannot kick the guy in the head when he's on the floor and you're standing, but you for sure can kick him in the body. There's many opportunities to do so, but we're still, the meta game in MMA is still that as soon as the guy's on the ground, either you kick him in the legs or you dive on top of him. Okay, it'll evolve eventually, but right now that's what most fighters do. But Roundtree definitely has the power to end it with one kick, and we saw that repeatedly when he got Anders to the floor, and then just tried to beat the crap out of him with leg kicks, and did a bunch of them in the beginning that were good. In the later rounds, not so much. He looked more hesitant. I think he lost a lot of time there, just standing there, not quite sure, do I kick the guy's legs or what do I do? And then eventually letting Anders stand up anyway. But what was most interesting is he was using this kind of adapted Muay Thai stance. So Joe Rogan and the other commentators, I think it was Daniel Cormier, were all about, yeah, look at this Muay Thai stance. Well, no, it's not really a Muay Thai stance. It's an adaptation of a Muay Thai stance. And the way he was bouncing on his feet is not really how Muay Thai fighters bounce on their feet. But it looked like a personal interpretation of traditional Muay Thai, but it worked. So there's nothing we can say about that. It worked. He did great. As you guys know, I am absolutely against throwing leg kicks, whether it's with the lead leg or with the rear leg. Throwing naked leg kicks, that means without a setup, unless you are extremely fast and powerful and have good timing with them. And Roundtree proved that he had just that. And that was the benefit of all the Thai training, is that he can now throw that lead leg kick and the rear one as well at blinding speed, and that makes that they land. And you could very clearly see that Eric Anders was having a tremendous amount of trouble handling those. His leg was all busted up, and I think it was after the first round already, when Roundtree started landing the inside leg kick, Anders' leg was just, it just got blown out of position completely, and you could clearly see that he was not enjoying that at all. So that was nice to see. I think Roundtree has a lot of potential, and Anders is not a bad fighter, but in this case, I think Roundtree got very confident in his techniques, in his striking. I think the last time that we saw him fight was against Gokhan Saki, who, by the way, when he first started getting, that was in K1 type style fighting, so not MMA. But when he started coming up, he was known for his blinding speed and his leg kick. His rear leg kick, he threw it about at the same speed as most people threw their jab. So it's extremely fast and powerful, and he messed up a lot of guys with it. He was one of those guys that I would say are an exception, that they can use the leg kick as a setup itself, as opposed to use other techniques or use timing and distancing to set up the leg kick to avoid what Anderson Silva had, is that it gets blocked and you break your shin. So that was it was impressive to see how Roundtree went from knocking out Gokhan Saki in his last fight to basically becoming an MMA clone of him, meaning that he looked very much, that was what his leg kicks were reminding me of the way that Gokhan Saki used to throw them. And you know, serendipity, I guess, but Gokhan Saki threw a naked naked leg kick at Roundtree, and Roundtree knocked him out with a 1-2, and the one missed and the two landed, and that was it. So anyway, that's all digressing a little bit, but I really liked the way Roundtree used his Muay Thai. It was interesting to see that he found a way of adapting it that works for him in the cage. And the biggest advantage is that, I mean, he's a big, strong guy. He's a light heavyweight. He's very explosive. He hits extremely hard. So, and you could see that he was like a coiled spring. So he was ready to pounce. He was ready to lash out with extreme power at anything that Eric Anders did. Anders immediately understood that after the first inside leg kick that he got, and he became cautious. And that shifts the mental aspect, the psychological aspect of the fight, is that if you're facing a guy and you know that you take a step forward and he's going to rip your head off, and he hits really hard and he's really fast, and you're not quite sure if you can block it or dodge it or time him, then it's very difficult to come forward. You can see that Eric Anders had a lot of trouble with that. He was doing his best basically to get close to Roundtree, but it was difficult. He tried to counter a couple times, but it was really hard. So that is one of the advantages that Roundtree has now with his tremendous power, coupled with just bone-jarring kicking techniques and a lot of power. I mean, he knocked Anders on his butt with that double jab cross combination that he did. And that was like a really well-placed punch. So, and I think it was in the last round, he did this quick 4-5 count combination as Anders was moving, and Anders was moving away because of the impact, and you could see Roundtree through the following high kick. So that's the classical Thai technique where, so if somebody moves away from you, he's automatically out of reach of your punches, but you can kick further than you can punch without stepping. So you throw the roundhouse kick to hit the guy as he moves away from you. And Roundtree just missed with that one, because that could have knocked Anders out clearly. A lot of respect to Anders, because he could take a punch, and the guy he soaked up a lot of punishment. So that was quite impressive, and overall deserved victory. It'll be very interesting to see what Roundtree does next. If he keeps evolving with his Muay Thai style striking. I have no idea what his ground game is going to be like if he's focusing so much on the ground, but I look forward to seeing him again. So that was a fun fight. And then we get to the two main event. The co-main event was Adesanya against Gastelum. I was looking forward to that one. I thought that was going to be a good fight. It was, and it wasn't. In my everybody going nuts over how awesome it was. Fight of the year, blah blah blah. I kind of disagree with that. I think we saw Adesanya a little bit. I'm not going to use the word exposed, because that's not what I mean. But you can see the limits of where he is at right now. Gastelum is not a bad fighter, but Gastelum is also a very limited fighter. He has a good jab cross, and he has a good jab cross, and he also has a good jab cross, and that's pretty much what he uses all the freaking time. There are many instances in which that Adesanya should have been able to capitalize on the limited skill set that Gastelum has, and he didn't. Now, mind you, I mean, we saw how it ended. He ended up dropping Gastelum repeatedly. later on in the fight that I thought that Gastelum was going to go out, but it didn't. So Gastelum, my hats off to the man, because he clearly knows how to take a punch and a kick. And also you have to recognize that he wobbled Adesanya with that head kick to the neck. So that could have ended things right then and there as well for Adesanya. So overall, one of the things that I think we can see now, compare Adesanya's fight against Anderson Silva with that one against Gastelum. So yeah, you look at the way in the later rounds he fought against Silva, it was still pretty damn technical. Whereas with Gastelum, he was a lot more emptied out in his gas tank. He was getting real tired. I'm a little bit afraid that what we might see with Adesanya is something similar to what we see with McGregor, is that not to the same degree, because McGregor is he's an extreme example of that, in that his style is only made possible as long as he's truly explosive. That means that he's mostly going to be extremely dangerous in the first and second round, less so in the later rounds, because the way that he throws his techniques, they are not from momentum. They are mostly using explosive muscular contraction and zero lead and zero build-up and zero momentum that is used. So that makes it extremely hard to see those punches and kicks coming. However, that requires a lot of energy, lots of it. And Adesanya is smarter than that, in the sense that he has the broken rhythm down really well. So it's hard to pinpoint what he's going to do. He uses a lot of feints. He feints with his hips as opposed to with the whole leg. He uses his footwork extremely well, which this is the hallmark of the advanced striker, is that he measures his footwork in half inches, not in feet. Many people who are even experienced MMA fighters and professionals have really crappy footwork, in a sense that it is not fine-tuned. It is footwork that works well. However, it is not really built to control the distance in detail. What that means is that when you look at Gastelum's footwork and compare that to Adesanya's footwork, what you'll see is Adesanya just inches closer and back every single time. Many times he was just trying to move his head away and create glancing blows instead of getting hit fully by Gastelum. And it works well for him, but you need really good footwork to do that, and he has that. However, once he gets tired, there's less feints, the footwork becomes a little bit more sloppy, and so on, which is entirely normal. Nothing wrong with that. However, that means that as a fighter, you have to be able to adapt to the fact that you get tired. Your style needs to have a plan B. Again, watch McGregor, the first fight against Diaz, you could clearly see that he gave everything in the first round, and then he was getting real tired by the time that he did the second round. And then he got a little bit beat up, got a few punches that he had to take, and there was nothing left. When you watch the second fight against Nate Diaz, what you'll see with McGregor is that early on in the first few rounds, he can do all his fancy footwork and movement stuff, and then third, fourth, and fifth round, you'll see he turns into a regular fighting. There's no more fancy footwork. There's no more special movements. It's all gone. He moves like every other fighter. That's what I mean with having a style that is dependent on being explosive and making it mostly a first and second round fighter. And Adesanya is, I'm not quite sure if he's there yet, but it looks like to me that if he needs to go 5 rounds, his style becomes more difficult to pull off consistently. Now, that coupled with the fact that he isn't the hardest hitter in the middleweight ranks. I mean, I'm not saying he doesn't hit hard, but Gastelum hits in my opinion, a bit harder. But Adesanya is more technical and so on. So my main point is that it was interesting to see the fight, and that I think it'll be curious to see who Adesanya fights next. I think if he's going to fight Whittaker, Well, that might be a tough fight for him because Whittaker is also a technical fighter. It's a very different style. However, he can last 5 rounds. We know that. He can do those wars. I'm not quite sure if Adesanya will be able to do that. We'll see. We'll see. As for Gastelum, again, you see the limitations of him as a fighter, the plodding footwork, the throwing everything in and the kitchen sink into his, especially in his striking techniques. It's fine, okay, it can work, but at the highest levels, that's just simply not enough. So we'll see where he goes from here, but I think he's pretty much reached his limits as well. I'm just going to quickly check if what age he has. He is 27, so he's got time to improve, but I haven't seen anything in his last few fights to indicate that he's getting better and better. We'll see. I kind of doubt it, but we'll see. And that brings us to the last fight of the card, and that was Dustin Poirier against Max Holloway. Interesting fight. I would have given it to Holloway. I thought Holloway was going to be have the edge with the way that he puts volume on, but noticed that the move up to lightweight was apparently a little bit rough on Holloway, and that's one of the things. And I'm just going over everything here. So yeah, he comes from featherweight and now going up to lightweight. The move up isn't always as easy as people make it sound. And I think he was now for the first time facing a guy like Poirier who hits hard and you can't just back the guy up easily. And even if you back him up, he's still very dangerous. You can't just dismiss that. I was very surprised by how well Poirier used the distance. He used his reach very effectively, and he maintained distance quite well. What you can see is several times that when Holloway tries to put pressure, Poirier would just countering with one punch, and just stop that advance. And this is one of the things that I always teach my students is like, right, you have to be able to generate forward pressure, but you also have to be able to withstand it. Max Holloway puts a lot of forward pressure on his opponents, but he mainly does so by a huge volume of techniques and a relentless pace, very similar to what Nick Diaz was famous for. And in a way, Holloway is kind of a 2.0 version of Nick Diaz when it comes to striking, in my opinion, because he puts on a really high pace and it just keeps going. But there's not that much power in there. And I think this is the first time that Holloway finds that the move from featherweight to lightweight, you fight different kind of guys. Poirier is a pretty big lightweight, and he doesn't have the same ability to just back those guys up easily. So I think that was a difficult part for him. Obviously, you as always he rallies. You try to put him down, and then he comes back, and he just keeps. I mean, his output is tremendous. He hits hard as hard as he can, which isn't really hard, but it just keeps on coming, and in the later rounds as well. So that's the interesting part. The longer the fight goes, most fighters strike less. The output goes down. Holloway, the output goes up. He starts hitting you more as you get tired. So that was, but I think that then the issue with him not hitting all that hard becomes problematic when you move up a weight class. And as we saw with Poirier, he was really good at just not taking it. Even when he was backed up against the fence, he just didn't stand there and take it. He tried to swing back, and a couple times he managed to get Holloway off of him or get away from the cage. So that was extremely well done. I really like that. I like the way he uses his jab. He oftentimes would do this little dipping forward and backwards, kind of like a pendulum motion with the upper body, and then out of the blue just snap that jab and land it. He also threw his overhand really well repeatedly, that I thought that Max would be able to see it coming, but clearly not, because it landed a bunch of times. And then obviously there was the beautiful knee in the clinch that he grabbed him, and then just that knee that produced the cut. So really well done, really well done by Poirier. We'll see where he ends up. Um, there's a lot of stuff going on about who's he going to fight next. For sure, Khabib. We'll see. I don't know. I mean, obviously, Poirier is. I mean, the guy is extremely experienced. That's not the issue. But I haven't seen enough of his ground game to say, like, what, he's going to be able to hang with Khabib on the ground. Very few people are able to, which means that Poirier will have to keep it standing, which is easier said than done. We've seen how McGregor tried that, and now pretty much everybody has tried to do that, and except Ali Iaquinta, with whom Khabib decided to exchange on the feet. He decided to not go to the ground for a while and just getting basically some sparring practice in the cage with Iaquinta. Nobody's able to dictate Khabib that he will have to stay on his feet. I'm not quite sure Poirier will be able to pull that off, given how he stands relatively high in his stance, and I don't think that he'll be able to resist Khabib's pressure and eventually get up in a clinch. And we know that once Khabib gets you in a clinch, in most cases, he eventually gets you down. And we'll see what happens then. I have no idea. But at this stage, I don't know who would be able to challenge Khabib on the ground. So we'll see how that goes. Anyway, I very much enjoyed the fight. It was a fun fight going over and back. And one of the really fun things to see was that they were giving each other a little bit of attitude. Like, I think it was at the end of the fourth round that the buzzer goes and the ref steps in, and they just stand and face each other and like, yeah, dude, I'm still here. But there was no viciousness to it. There was no animosity. At the beginning of the fifth round, you could see Poirier was just pointing to the cage, like to the center of the cage, like, dude, we're gonna bang out. We're going to just give it one more good round and trying to punch each other's face in. And you could see Holloway like, yeah, dude, yeah, let's go. Which was, in my opinion, I enjoyed that a whole lot more than McGregor's antics of insulting people and all that kind of stuff. You can do psychological warfare in the cage in many different ways, and they all work to a certain degree. But I like that vibe. I like that a whole lot more. That was a lot of fun. I like to see those kind of fighters, like, they give some attitude, but it's not disrespectful. Some guys go with the disrespect. Okay, whatever, do what you want. And other guys, they are a little bit more, how should I put it? It's just like, right, this other guy's good too. I can acknowledge that. Doesn't mean that he's better than me, but I can acknowledge that he's good. So, and I respect him as a fighter, but we're still going to try to knock each other's heads off. So that was for me fun to see. Anyway, that's pretty much it. Let me see, because I'm not quite sure what comes next. We have Fight Night, April 20th this weekend, and that's Overeem against Oleinik. That card doesn't look really good, unless there are spectacular fights coming up. I doubt that I will talk about that much. And then afterwards, we've got the Jacare against Hermansson fight, which has Greg Hardy returning to the ring. Oh no, that's not a Greg Hardy. So I was wrong. I'm making a mistake here. Checking out those fights. Doesn't really look all that awesome. And then afterwards we got Iaquinta against Cowboy. Could be a fun fight. We'll see how that goes. Anyway, UFC is putting up all these events, like truckloads of them, and the quality is starting to suffer. But that's for another time. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed this analysis of the event. Talk to you guys next time. In the meantime, go to the MMA Formula page on Facebook. That's where we hang out, and I have a bunch of other videos and so on. Just check the description of this video and you'll find the link. Okay, take care.